That's no worries whatsoever. Anyway, Jenny's there, right? So I'm gonna mute myself and wash the dishes while I listen to you guys. Okay. Thanks, Jackie.
Hi,
Okay,
hi, Jackie.
bye. Hi, Jenny.
Hi. Hi. Nice to see you, speak to you. How are you, Andy?
Yes, Jackie. I'm very well. Jackie's brand new show started straight after yours this evening.
Oh, yay! Excellent. Nice one, Jackie. That's so brilliant.
So she's, you're a bit nervous, aren't you, Jackie? You're a little nervous, but you'll be fine. You'll be absolutely awesome. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant.
Anyway, I'm muting so I can get the dishes washed, right?
Ah, that's so exciting. So yeah, this is episode 11. So I like 11. It's one of my favourite numbers.
It's to be a recurring number that pops up on a daily basis with me.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to the time. You know, you look at what time it is, or even just glancing at it, and it's always some kind of synchronistic number, and it can be 11:11, or it can even be 11:12, like 12 minutes past 11, so it's 1112.
Yeah.
Or
I've had like, sometimes I've looked at the clock and it's 11:11 and 11 seconds, and like that's happened on days where it's the 11th as well, like the 11th of something, and I've got the date on there. And it's like, how insane and ridiculous can the numbers get? Or 22, 22 and 22 seconds. Like, it's absolutely crazy how it all lines up. I mean, I don't really understand like things and the numbers, but I like it because it's a reminder of the real reality.
Yeah, it's quite a. I don't know what the meanings are, but from what I've seen and what I've sort of researched, if you keep observing repeating numbers, whether it's 11:11, 22, 22, 33, 33, etc., that's supposed to, as far as I understand it anyway, that's the universe sort of sending you messages,
Yeah.
or sending you positive waves or something.
Yeah.
And what I find myself doing now is that I sort of, every time I see, which is quite frequently throughout the day, every time I see synchronistic numbers like 11:11 or 11:12, or 1:01, that's another one that pops up quite regular. So 1 minute past 1.
Yeah. Yeah,
I've seen that a few times.
I love it.
So yeah, I just give thanks, mate. I just thankful, grateful for then, for now, and for tomorrow.
Yeah, no, that's a lovely thing to do. And I remember when sort of I first started to wake up and read about the law of attraction and wonder if it was real and all of that. And I listened to people talk about numbers and I thought, that can't be true. And I can't remember who it was, but somebody said, yeah, well, if you want to see the numbers and you're not seeing the numbers, like all you've got to do is ask, you know, just say, I'd like to experience that, please. Please, can you connect with me through the numbers? And so I asked for that, and then it literally happened straight away. And I remember the same thing happened for my daughter, because she thought I was crazy when I would keep noticing numbers and didn't really understand it. And I said to her, well, if you want to experience what I'm experiencing, because I can't explain it to you, because I was saying to her, you know, the universe makes you look at a certain time at a taxi and then you see the numbers on the side of the thing and you wouldn't normally have looked, but anyway, she didn't get it, and so she asked to see the numbers and now she sees them. And you can't really argue with that, can you? Because some things you can't explain to another person. It's like when you try to explain a synchronicity that happened to you, because it's your synchronicity and it only has meaning for you, you might find yourself explaining that to someone else and then they're like, no, don't get it, no. I love it though.
It's a bit like, kind of like that when I'm trying to explain things that I've foreseen for myself in the future that have come to pass, and and I'll say like, oh yeah, there's things that haven't happened yet,
Mm.
and they look at you like with a cocked head and a puzzled look, and so there are things that I've dreamt in my dreams, scenarios and situations that have come to pass. So therefore, I've trusted that intuition, I've trusted the dreams that I've had, to know that haven't happened because I've seen them, but they haven't come to pass yet.
Yeah.
So I'm still on that path. Whatever it is that I'm here for, that's what I'm here for. It hasn't ended yet.
Yeah, it's so interesting. Do you get that quite often, sort of like premonition or precognition?
Yeah, well, I don't know if the what I've sort of come to the conclusion is, for me, when I'm asleep and when your brainwave pattern frequency changes, you connect. What I've come to the conclusion is that you're connecting, or your brain connects to an alternate reality that's vibrating at that point in as you're asleep. It's the nearest one. So that's why sometimes when you dream, well, this is what I think anyway, sometimes when you're dreaming, wherever it is that you're in at that time where you're dreaming looks familiar but slightly different, or it can be completely different because you're connected to a completely different reality. So for me, I've seen things in these dreams that I've witnessed and watched, and then I've seen it come in this reality when I'm awake. But slightly different. It might be that there was somebody dead in the dream, but they're alive in this one, or vice versa. Or it could be that it was a red car that they was in, but in this reality it's a blue car. Slight changes, but the scenarios are the same.
Yeah, it's weird. Yeah, I sort of get like things that seem to be like a knowing. Like for example, I knew not to get vaccinated, but I didn't know why. But I knew it was. I knew about the bioweapon thing, but I didn't remember ever researching it or finding it out. I just knew. So I have like cognitions that isn't like a dream. It's just something that seems to be implanted in my head that other people don't have. But I sometimes get like a sense of a person. So I'll give you an example. Like a friend of mine has come back into my life that I've not seen for a couple of years. And I knew he was going to come back, but like it was because I had a felt sense of him. So I sensed his energy and I thought, that's weird. Why am I thinking of such and such that I haven't seen for ages? And then I thought that they're going to reappear at some point and it's going to be for some significant reason, but I still don't know what that is. And then a couple of weeks later, this person texted me and I'm going to meet up with them, but I still don't know what that's about because I know it's important. Otherwise, I wouldn't have had a precognition about it. So it's sort of like maybe I would have not gone to meet this person because I've been drawn from a lot of people and it's too much hard work, like explaining my perspective to people. I might have just gone, oh fuck it, I can't be asked. But yeah, like I know that I need to meet up with him because I had a feeling of he's coming for some reason. So isn't that weird? Kind of unsettling but exciting in a sort of weird kind of way.
Yeah, I watched a thing years ago now, more, what are we in 24, over 12 years ago, and it explained in a very simplistic way that if you step back, like one step behind this physical reality, we're all energy. This interconnected balls of energy that are floating around, and they're all part of this whole energy field. So there's individual balls of energy, and it's had a great big soup of energy. And so if there's intuition, it's because there's vibrating energy coming towards that you're receiving and you're picking up, and then you're translating that into materialistic feelings in your body.
Yeah.
So yeah, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah,
it's
an interesting one. Yeah, and it is like translation, isn't it? It's kind of like trying, because we're learning to translate it. We're all stumbling around, not knowing what we're doing really. But yeah, that's the beauty of it.
Indeed. Oh, look at that. We're 2 minutes past already.
Yeah, I know.
Right. Are you starting the recording, or do you want me to start?
Yeah, I'll start it, Andy. Okay.
Don't forget to stop it.
Yeah. Yeah, okay.
At the end. Where's Tim? Tim normally is joined by now, wasn't he? Is he?
Yeah, I think he's about. Yeah, he'll probably join in later. Okay, right, I'm just starting.
Right.
Hello, everybody. This is Jenny Luscombe, and this is Feeling is Healing, episode 11. And I must be mad taking on this topic, but I'm going to be talking today about equality, which is a hot potato. Yeah, so we've all seen the world and we've seen what's happening, and men are fighting women and women are fighting men, and everybody's fighting about immigration and politics, and everyone's saying, hey, you over there, you're wrong and bad. And yeah, there's a lot going on, and a lot of people are protesting and fighting for equality, which is fair enough. And I believe in equality. I believe that all humans have value, which is immeasurable. And I don't think that any person alive is more significant than any other person alive, and that we all deserve to be respected as we are. So I haven't got an argument with equality as such, but I think that in the world, unconditional equality has become an agenda that has been twisted to keep us fighting or in lack. So I'm being quite brave taking this on and attempting to unpick it. I mean, ultimately, what I want to see in the world is everybody coming into their own power and helping everybody else to do the same. So all of us rising together, men rising with women, whatever gender, race, whatever's going on for you, that we can all rise together. But this is not happening in the world. So, I wonder why that is. So I think that ultimately, the fight for equality is basically everybody fighting for their own sense of value, which makes sense. And we want to be valued equally and we want to be treated equally. But if we live in a reality where value itself depends on individual needs, individual perspective, individual preferences, desires. So we live in a reality where we all have different boundaries, we have different values. So if we want to be valued equally, but we live in a reality where value actually depends on very, very different things, then nothing is ever going to be equal. So maybe it isn't actually equality that we're striving for, but we've been led to believe it is. So in this episode, I'm going to sort of attempt to separate the issue of unconditional equality, which we're seeing playing out everywhere, all over the place. I want to separate that from our own triggers about equality and a sense of our own value. So there's lots of questions that I've sort of included in this that we can ask ourselves so that we can see what's going on with us, with authority. Because obviously, if we're on the spiritual path, we have had issues with authority somewhere along the line, like somewhere in our life. We've been doing that. We've been having a problem with authority. And I haven't got a problem with having a problem with authority. I definitely have a big problem with authority, and I've got good reason, because I suffered a lot of abuse in my life. So coming back from that involves a lot of pendulum swing from one side to the other. So if you look at the definition of equality, obviously it's linked to diversity and inclusion, and it's basically the idea of having equal opportunities and rights, being treated fairly regardless of background and ability and lifestyle, having the right to not be discriminated against because of who you are or what makes you different from others, which is supposed to ensure that everyone has the best chance to succeed in life and that they can reach their potential. So that's all well and good. And it makes me laugh how far away we are from that in the world. So having worked in a school for a long time, I can assure you that teaching children how to succeed in life and helping them to reach their potential, I can assure you that that isn't happening at all in any way, shape or form. And having also worked in a hospital for people with mental health issues, I didn't see it happening there either. I don't see that happening in the governments of the world. So it does kind of look a bit depressing. And my memory sort of, I do go back to sort of when I was a kid, I read lots of books on my parents' bookshelves because I spent a lot of time being like really bored. And I do remember reading Animal Farm. Some animals are more equal than others, which like really sticks in my mind and kind of planted a seed in my head, I think. But what if we're actually not all equal? Because we can't actually be compared with each other in the first place. So I would argue that equality is an illusion, and that there's better words for explaining kind of what's happening in the world. So we can see that with the elites and the cabal and the governments and all of that, we can see that they're pretending that equality exists, but they're showing us that actually it doesn't. So something that kind of interferes with all of this is that we've all been very, very disempowered in the way that we've been brought up. So any way of perceiving ourselves as less than someone else is potentially a trigger in our central nervous system, which is fair enough, and it's okay to be triggered. The thing that we're all learning to do is to separate when we're triggered from what we're seeing in reality. So if you think about it, like the whole of the tabloid industry is based on this kind of like subconscious mission to knock other people down. So this game of I win, you lose. So because we perceive ourselves as less than, and they know that, they make it their business to kind of like pick holes in the celebrities, and then we can look at them and then go, oh, you know, so and so from Hollywood, like they've got this problem that I haven't got, so that must mean I'm on a par with them. So I mean, it's just insanity. Yeah, so what if it's just our ego that is concerned with equality, but it's actually an illusion in itself? So hierarchy and equality and authority, you know, all of the protests and everything, you know, whatever it's about, gender, race, immigration, the systems, what are we actually fighting for? So are we fighting for equality or for our own best interests based on our values and our excellence? So I'm wondering, you know, like obviously I've alluded to having worked in a school and all of that. You know, I wonder how it would have turned out if we had been told when we were children that we have a unique excellence to bring to the world that no one else has. And wouldn't it be fun to find out what that is? So that you could look forward to the rest of your life, like blossoming like a flower, so that you could share that excellence and nurture it and thrive from providing that as a service to other people who value it. Imagine if that had been what we could foresee our life turning out like. Imagine that. So what's actually happened is that since day one of our lives happened, we've been taught to compare ourselves and compete with every other person that we come into contact with, and that it's basically every man for himself. And I've talked a lot about that with the narcissism codependent thing, like all the early childhood trauma stuff. But basically that has set up, and it's so familiar, you know, That's not fair. You know, like we've all grown up saying that's not fair, pointing at our brother or our sister or somebody else at school or somebody else in the workplace. That's not fair. They get to do this or have that, or and why don't I get to have this? Or so powers that be have basically set it all up so that we get embroiled in this loop of that's not fair. The whole, even the definition of equality is kind of based on lack when you really sort of pull it apart. I wonder how it could have been different. So, hierarchy. Now, this is interesting because this has made my brain tick a lot. So, because I've always sort of looked at myself as a bit of an anarchist and interested in self-government and interested in everybody becoming empowered so that they can do that and so that we can do that together in a sort of synchronous, synergy, in a synergistic way. Now, obviously, that would scare the shit out of a lot of people. A lot of people need an authority, and that's okay. So I don't, because I mean, I do have big issues with authority. So I've had to open my heart and my head a lot to sort of go there with this show. But what we need to sort of ask ourselves is like, who is it that can be an authority on everything? So, like, does it even make sense to have a prime minister, for example? I mean, the prime minister that we have in the UK currently is not making sense at all to anyone, from what I can see. And none of them have, in my opinion. And I've never been interested in the politics because I've always seen that it isn't something that works and isn't something that's real. So many of us resist power and we resist authority, we resist hierarchy because we've been so wounded by it and so hurt by it. So ask yourself these questions, because I think that it's okay to resist authority, but to know that hierarchy is okay and that there is a possibility for hierarchy to work. But the only reason that we think it doesn't work or that we even protest or fight against it is because we've got trauma that's unhealed. So I always think that everything in your reality can change when you deal with a specific trauma. So ask yourself these questions. What happened to you in your life when someone was in a superior position to you? So that probably triggers lots and lots of different memories of being dominated when it didn't feel good. What happened in your life when someone had more power than you in certain circumstances? Sometimes that has worked well for us when we've needed help and someone has been available who has the particular knowledge, wisdom, value that we are looking for in that moment. Sometimes it can be miraculous. But what happened to you when it wasn't? So when someone was in a superior position to you, they had more power than you, and it didn't work out. What happened when you felt less than and it didn't feel fair? So I think probably for a lot of people, the answer is that you were not taken into consideration. So it's possible that they didn't consider your thoughts, your feelings, your perspective, including your knowledge, experience, and wisdom. You might have felt that your needs were not considered. You might have felt that your best interests were not acted upon. So this kind of equates to feeling like you don't exist. You couldn't exist as yourself, which feels like total powerlessness and fear and a lack of control over your own circumstances. So when we've been dominated by authority figures and we've kind of been castrated, we've actually lost our free will. And sort of when you zoom out and you zoom out a million times, this is what this whole spiritual war is about. Now, I know from personal experience that when this happens, the pendulum swing can cause you to become obsessed with freedom. And I am definitely guilty of that. So if you have been disempowered to a certain degree, you might sort of make a vow, I'm never going to be the underdog again. I'm going to step into my power, like full on, all in, you know. It's a massive energy, like huge. And you can see it in the world now, like a wave. And everybody's dealing with it in different ways because they've all got their own thing with health or gender or race or whatever. So what I've come to realize through some like really difficult things that have happened to me, because I have fought authority sometimes when I should have picked my battles a bit more, and I should have like left certain things and then picked a lane. Do you know what I mean? Fight this thing, don't fight that thing. But anyway, if you don't acknowledge and respect an authority, whether that authority is a good one or not, it can be incredibly dangerous. So if you think about that from the perspective of like a little fish thinking it owns the place, swimming around in a big river, thinking it's the most superior creature in the river, and it hasn't seen any other superior creatures and thinks it's like top dog. And then suddenly it gets snapped up by a shark and it gets eaten alive. So that kind of thing has happened to me before, where I fought against authority and I haven't really thought through the situation, like, why am I doing that? Am I reacting to the thing itself that I'm trying to reclaim some kind of justice when an injustice has been done? Or am I actually just reacting to energy that is a trauma that I haven't resolved from childhood? So I think sometimes I have rebelled in ways that has got me into trouble when I could have just done some healing instead. But you live and learn. So this is quite controversial because, like, obviously we're all we've got our eyes open and we can see what's going on in the world, and it's right that we're standing up to authority, and people are suffering and we're all suffering and we want a better life, and it makes sense that we're rising. But we have to keep our wits about us. Just because someone is in a position of authority obviously doesn't mean that they should be or that they can be trusted, for sure. So we need to know that rebellion versus compliance, it's two sides of the same coin. It's a pendulum swing. Neither is empowerment. Empowerment is somewhere in the middle, if that's even possible. So what I can sort of see playing out in the world is that people's early childhood trauma has sometimes tricked them and morphed into this kind of sense of, you know, I just want what other people have. You know, I just want to be equal to everybody else. I want to get what everyone else has. I want to be like everybody else. Kind of based on an assumption that everybody else has more than us. So it's kind of coming from a lack mentality. But it's not that. It in reality, if you kind of look at it, if you look at what's really going on, it's not about equality. It's about free will to exist as we are and to thrive as that. So because we've been systematically kind of taken away from ourselves by gazillion agendas, many of us are not sure who we are, and we're still trying to figure that out. So we're kind of on this mistaken quest for, I want equality. I want to be the same as everybody else. When in fact, what we should be fighting for and striving for is becoming different to everyone else in the way that we're different. It's bonkers how upside down everything is. It kind of makes me laugh. It really does. So even though I believe that we all have immeasurable, infinite value as humans, and many of us haven't, excavated that yet, and we haven't surfaced what that is, which is okay. We're on the road. So even though I believe that we're all immeasurably equal in terms of being human, we're just not equal. None of us are equal to others because we're all different. So, like, some of us can disco dance. Some of us have 2 left feet. Some of us can perform brain surgery, whereas others of us can perform psychic surgery. So some of us can cook, some of us can't. Some of us could put a whole tube of fruit pastels in our mouth without chewing it. So people are superior to others in very specific ways, which makes us also inferior to others in very specific ways. Now, that's just true. And the sooner that we all accept our own superiority and inferiority to others, the sooner we can get on with like having utopia. So what we're seeing in the world is loads and loads of different reactions to not being allowed to exist as us, and then feeling others threatening our existence as our unique self. So there's lots of people in the world. I'm not going to use examples because it's just too triggering. But there seems to be a lot of people in the world fighting for freedom to be a certain way, when actually, when you look at them and you look at their energy, you can see that they're really far away from themselves. Like, they're fighting to be really far away from themselves, thinking that they're really close to themselves. And that's because they've taken on other people's beliefs as true instead of trying it out for size and then deciding, is this for me or is this not for me? Is this who I am, what I am? So there's a lot of agendas that are taking people into realities that is causing them to believe that they are certain ways that they're not. So I think that if we want to be accepted in the world as the authority that we are, in what we uniquely have to offer that maybe others don't, that others could benefit from, then we actually have to get comfortable with acknowledging and accepting others when they are in their superiority and excellence, and when they are leading on that. Now, this does not mean accepting tyrannical authority who are having a game of pretend and like faking it and pretending to be a certain way when they're not. No. But if we want to actually rise ourselves and become purposeful in the specific way that we could divinely be purposeful, then we have to start to accept authority when we see it. We have to acknowledge authority that is true authority. So the sooner that we can sort of move on from rejecting authority that we are not interested in, that we can see as harming us, we need to get on with validating and approving and reinforcing and accepting authority and superiority when it works, when we can see that that person is in their power and that they can bring good for humanity, for the universe, for the multiverse, for all of us, for the earth. So dictatorships have caused a pendulum swing into unconditional equality, and it's an illusion, like many of them, and it doesn't make sense. So this is when people are demanding to be equal for power's sake alone. Now, it's an issue, it's a trauma, it's an unhealed issue, and it isn't wrong to be stuck there. But any awareness that could be brought to that would be life-changing for people that are stuck there. You've only got to look into schools and see standardized robots for children, all the same, treated the same. Oh my God, like it's a horror story. And that's what the world wants for us. And that's what we're rising up against. we're not all standardized, equal robotic automatons. Like that's not who we are. And it's not surprising that there's a huge surge in the rise of mass consciousness. So obviously consciousness needs to do a lot of evolving before existence without a power system can work. Rebellion isn't empowerment just as much as compliance isn't empowerment. It's about authority and hierarchy in itself isn't wrong. It's getting the system that works. So there's an analogy. Where have I written that down? Oh yeah, okay, I'll get to that bit. So there's another question here. Are we challenging authority to simply not be at the bottom? Or are we challenging authority because we've got good reason? So are we challenging it to avoid the pain of feeling powerlessness, inferiority, and unsafety? Because if we are, that probably comes from trauma, and sitting with the powerlessness, the inferiority, and the unsafety could work wonders to pull the plug out of disempowerment. So just ask yourself, is it mainly that I just don't want to be at the bottom and I'm sick of someone being above me? Because that's valid. That's a valid pain. I would recommend anyone from any perspective sitting with the powerlessness, the inferiority, and the unsafety of feeling like someone's above you and you don't want them to be. Or are we challenging authority because we're in a reality that we belong in? Hang on, let me read that again. So, are we challenging authority because we are in reality that we belong in that equal or superior position? Or because we have a good reason to be in that superior position? So it's about like, do you have a better reason than simply not wanting anyone else to be above you? So there's a lot of reaction in the world because people are just feeling the intensity of the mum and dad issues, and they haven't realized that that's what's going on in their energy system. It's an unhealed problem with authority. And like, we've all got good reason to have that, you know, I'm not diminishing that. But it's the feelings that need to be acknowledged in order for you to land in reality, in the actual reality that's around you. So once you acknowledge hierarchy, superiority, authority in people who are better at something than you, or they can bring more wisdom or understanding or learning than you, then it puts you into reality. It doesn't mean that you won't be able to, or that you won't even need to challenge authority at all. You might. It just means that you'd be more conscious about doing that and more likely to have a good strategy to do that in like a loving way, you know. I'm interested in sort of moving into a world where we no longer need to rebel and we no longer need to refuse to be below someone else. Like, you know, fighting to be equal or above other people just because we've got early childhood trauma isn't really it's not gonna get us anywhere. It's not gonna bring evolution. It's not gonna help a rise in consciousness. We need to process the emotions so that we're not triggered, so that we can land in reality. So we need to accept that others should be on a pedestal sometimes, but not others. So I would argue that everyone on planet Earth, being that we are all fragments of source consciousness, we all have a pedestal, but each one is different. And it's not the pedestals that are the problem. So just because we've all been hurt by people on pedestals and people in authority who didn't have our best interests, doesn't mean that we should go away. I think even though I am a bit of an anarchist and I believe in self-government, um, I think we still need a hierarchy, which is really difficult. I think it's about seeing that power itself isn't a problem. It's about how it's used. So if power is used in service, it is absolutely miraculous. But if power is just wielded for power's sake, I mean, we all know what that looks like because we're seeing it. We're seeing it now everywhere. So that's the problem. You know, when there is no service involved in the power, that's what we've got. So it's a good argument for everyone starting to work on themselves, quite honestly. I think we have to start to allow superiority in others instead of feeling threatened by it. But this actually has to happen before we can allow our own superiority and excellence and life purpose to kick in. So, like, you know, loads of us on this path are looking for our life purpose, you know, what is it that I'm supposed to be doing, and who am I when I'm in my true divinity and bringing the service that I'm here to bring? And like, we have to see ourselves before we can do that, but we also have to see others. We have to see what others can bring to us. It comes back to interdependence again. Everything I talk about comes back to interdependence, which is the answer to everything. Yeah, so everyone's life purpose is some kind of power, and it's some kind of authority, and it's some kind of superiority. So we've got to get really comfortable with inferiority and superiority, even though they're the most triggering concepts in the universe. So I don't think that the universe is actually opposing hierarchy and authority in itself. Like, we need leaders. I think the universe wants what's best for all of us, whichever way that can happen. So, with leaders who can benefit from serving the best interests of all. So, we need leaders that we can trust and that we can feel loved and cared for by. So, how this actually is organized and how this can be orchestrated, the only way that it can work is if it happens through love, where people are taken as a part of the other, included, inclusivity. So this is about seeing where we fit, not about trying to fit like a sort of mismatched puzzle piece, like trying to fit in where you don't fit in. It's about finding your place and seeing where you fit, because there is one. So it's about all of us finding a place in a system that serves the whole. So I found this analogy that kind of makes a lot of sense to sort of explain what the reactivity is in the world. So if you think about an engine, if you think about a hierarchy that would be in alignment. So when the engine's working, all the parts are working perfectly. But all those parts are different to each other, but they all rely on all the other parts for the engine to be working. They're all doing like really different jobs. So, like, the piston isn't trying to be the fuel pump, and the fuel pump isn't trying to be the piston. Neither tries to do what the other is doing because they're not the same job. They're not the same thing. So, the people who are out in the world fighting for unconditional equality, no matter what, they are fighting to be able to be all parts of the engine. Can it work? Can that work? Because I don't think that can work. So, you know, you hear men fighting with women, women fighting with men, women saying men are a waste of space and they can't bring anything to the table anymore, and all this insanity. And it's about, oh, well, you know, women have been disempowered, so men should suffer forever, and patriarchy, blah, blah, blah. I mean, how can that get us anywhere? Like, we have to look at every issue, not just gender. not just the immigration stuff, not just the race. Like, we need to find a way where we can rise together. It's about rising in power together. It's about seeing the past, like learning from the past, learning, looking at the pendulum swings. Okay, we all went that way, that didn't work. We all went that way, that didn't work. You know, what can work? Like, how can we all feel honored and valued and supported as us? So it's about doing our own work and finding our own place and our own power and our own authenticity, which is like easier said than done. I mean, we were all socialized on planet Earth, so oh my God, like really, it's a nightmare. Um, but I mean, like I said at the beginning, it all depends on needs. Like our value depends on needs, perspective, and preference. So the needs of humanity is constantly in flux. Change is going to happen. So if you sort of look at the engine, yeah, so okay, the fuel pump needs to be involved in it being refueled. But like when the car needs to turn, then the steering is like top dog. Do you know what I mean? Like the steering is in charge because that's its excellence. It's not the fuel pump anymore. So there needs to be some sort of flowing, changeable system of hierarchy depending on the needs of the moment. So can you imagine if we all rose into our own power and we all knew what our excellence was, and everyone knew where to find us when, you know, the thing that we were offering was required, and that everybody had that sense of purpose and could be identified and could rise. Like you see this when, you know, like when you see people channel various beings or whatever, you know, like sometimes you get a channel who can channel lots of different beings at once. So I can't think of there's a lady in my head whose name I forgot. But anyway, she will do sort of like a Q&A with her audience and people ask questions and then she'll ask questions to the beings that are with her that she's tuned into. And then different beings will step forward to answer specific questions. So it's kind of like in that group of beings who are in attendance at that meeting, whatever, like there's an agreement there that, okay, so Archangel Michael's going to answer this one because that's his ball game. Do you know what I mean? But like for some other question, it might be some other group of a collective of beings might step forward to answer this one. Like when you see that in action, that's like where we're going. So we need to sort of reach some sort of understanding that no one is an ultimate authority. Like there is no one who can be an authority on everything. And that competition and comparison has messed us all up, like big time. We need to move into co-creation and collaboration. Like you even see this at a cellular level. Like you see this in, you know, if you listen to Dr. Bruce Lipton talk, he describes this at an atomic level, like what's going on in the body. You know, collaboration and cooperation is the order of the day, not like games of I win, you lose. You know, and we always say the microcosm, the macrocosm, all of that. Yeah, so it's about owning our place, owning our power, owning our authenticity, which is it's not easy. It's a nightmare. Oh my God. So yeah, it's about coming into our own power and helping others to do that. It's about us rising together. Yeah, so this episode has been about kind of trying to separate the issue from our own triggers about it. Like, I would recommend with anything that anytime there is strong emotion, I would always recommend sitting with that strong emotion because then you can get a clear picture of what's really happening. It's like you know, when I was teaching, I wish that when I've been teaching, I wish that I could have had my perspective that I have now. Because like I remember breaking up loads of fights on the yard and like helping children with arguments and stuff that they'd had. And when I think about how I used to help children deal with conflict, I was totally like I was not kind of helping those kids at all. I was probably making things worse, because what I would do now is, I would help each child kind of see the other perspective, and I'd let them kind of have time to kind of absorb their part in it, and I'd give them time. I wouldn't force them into an apology. I'd give them time to process. But I didn't know then when I was teaching. I didn't understand that triggers and fights and things, like, it's never about the thing that's happening. It's just the thing that's happening is a signpost to the earlier thing that happened. Like, if I could help people to understand conflict, it would be, okay, you need to see the reality of what's really happening here. So this person has done this or said this, and it has reminded you and your central nervous system of a deep wound that you hid from yourself. So now you've reacted to this person or this circumstance because this thing has triggered your nervous system. So now all you have to do is feel that original energy, allow it to move through your body. And then after you've done a really good job of that, and then you've asked yourself, okay, what if it wasn't that person that was in my current reality? What if that wasn't what I was upset about? What if they were just showing me something that I needed to see? What if I could thank them for it? If you can land in reality, particularly even a peaceful one, where you can be grateful for the messages that other people are giving you instead of ungrateful and even forcefully attacking and bringing down, like, the people around you for the messages that they're bringing you, the world could be a lot more peaceful. And I do feel that this quest for unconditional equality is going nowhere. And I'm like looking at it with my popcorn, wondering where it's going to end. Because it's a nightmare to pick apart, and to it's hard to be in the triggers that your central nervous system is showing you and see reality at the same time. It's a nightmare. It's a nightmare. But it's what we all have to do in order to see, like, the truth of where we are and what's happening and what's good for us. So I think I've covered most of what I was going to say. I don't know if that's made sense, because, like, I don't know, sometimes I don't feel like I make sense, but it makes sense to me on some level, and it's what I've kind of been thinking about and noticing a lot this week. And I always tend to talk about stuff in my show that has been on my radar, or that I'm going through myself, or wondering about, or just things that I'm learning. So yeah, there's a couple of people here listening. So if anybody would like to chip in, say anything, help yourself.
Well, it looks like no one else is unmuted, so I'll be the first. Thank you, Jen.
Thanks, Andy.
Great show. I've missed a little bit of it in the middle. So I've got the first 15, 20 minutes and the last 20 minutes. And the one thing that I just wanted to quickly sort of mention with what you've been saying, totally agree with where you, from what I've heard anyway, totally agree with what you said. And I've sort of likened humanity to trees. And as a human being, if we look at the various different types of trees that there are in the world, no tree is greater than another tree. They might have a different use or purpose, and human beings may be able to utilize the wood from a tree that's different to another tree because it's stronger, thicker, better, softer, lighter, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
But all trees are equal.
Yeah.
Human beings are all equal, whether you're male, female, black, brown, white, green, pink, purple, yellow dots on, whatever, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
We're all children of the universe.
Yeah, that's such a beautiful way of putting it, because there's so much diversity and beauty, and I really, really like believe that there is a place for everyone. And like you hear about people talking about this, there's a solar flash coming like in the next 20 years or whatever, and it's going to right all the wrongs, and everyone's energy will be kind of put back to where it should be, and all of this, like whether or not that's true, who knows? But like, what would the world look like where everybody is just honored? Do you know what I mean? Like just honored for the beauty that they are, and like
There is a
valued
place.
for.
There is a place, and do you know what it's called?
No.
It's called Star Trek.
I think you might have Tim chipping in now that you've said that.
Yeah, that's definitely a chime-in point for me. Although I'm, to be honest, I'm far too in my emotions today to offer anything constructive. But great show and good subject.
Thanks, Tim. Yeah, it's weird because like was one of three sisters, and we were not encouraged to watch Star Trek because we were girls in the 70s, right? So but quite a few people I know, including Tim, have talked about Star Trek and been so passionate about it that I have watched a little bit of Star Trek, and I totally get it. I feel like I probably need to get into that and maybe make it a therapy, Star Trek therapy.
Absolutely, it's a great concept for the future,
Mm.
where humanity works together for a better future, without the need of money, because it becomes pointless when you're all working together. There's no need for money.
Yeah.
And be warned, Jenny. Sorry, Andy. Be warned, Jenny.
Yeah.
You as well.
Oh, are you? That's great. That's great. I love it. I love how everyone's been sort of had these seeds planted in their head from Star Trek, because I didn't get it and sort of resisted it for a long time because I was programmed in the 70s. It's like that's boys watch that, boys, and it just is something that I probably need to allow into my reality. That's great, Jackie.
Yeah, definitely. The whole futuristic concept of everyone for each other, and they have to encourage. I know there was difficulties at first with the Star Trek sort of universe when the writers in America in the 60s were trying to write stories, because they were trying to write and they were saying like, no, there is no conflict, there is no, but they sort of weaved it in there. But the whole 60s original Star Trek had a lot of firsts in it. First gay actor, first black woman. It was like it was full of equality. And even now, if you watch the documentaries where Michelle Nichols talks about how she was totally unaware of the impact that she was having on women in general, black women, young girls, the power position that she had in that, back then was absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah.
And it was that equality that women, regardless, men, regardless, all working together, same goal, the conquest of space.
Yeah. Amazing. I love that. Yeah, I hadn't thought of that at all. I think that's amazing. It's so lovely how film and TV and everything has it's been planting truth bombs within all of us all along, hasn't it? It's mind blowing.
There's little things that come out, and if you don't know or you're not aware, then you don't see them, and they just pass you by, and you're completely oblivious to them. And then, like you just said, like you were conditioned not to watch Star Trek because that's a boys' thing.
Yeah.
And yet, I know more female Trekkies than I do males.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So it's a fascinating area of possibility,
Yeah.
hope, and the sort of future that it could be if we all work together.
Yeah, totally.
I love that. There's something just to say what you said there about hope. I think really that's one of the biggest messages, like from all of Star Trek, I would say, from the 60s through to the early 2000s. Not so sure about after that, really, but in that time frame, the main message was about, hope and the human spirit and people working for the greater good of all rather than working for the individual anymore. You're like working for the whole. And that message of hope can be so strong, especially for people that have really difficult lives or really difficult childhoods. It gives them something to believe in deep within themselves, and I think that's one of the most powerful things that Star Trek ever did for people. And I hope that could use the word hope, that in the future we will get back to some kind of similar production and storytelling of what those times were doing, because I don't think we've had much of that in the last couple of decades, which is probably reflective of the level of difficulty and facing of trauma and darkness that we're all having to do in the last 2 decades, which has really scaled up to such an intense level. But I do hope that with a little time we start getting back to that kind of storytelling, because we need it.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, rather than the political stuff that's been churned out now, like you say, over the last 20 years. It's just phenomenal. It's just incredible what's been happening, and is happening. I've stopped watching modern sort of TV. I'm literally watching at the moment. I got recommended to watch Murdoch Mysteries. I don't know if anyone's seen that, but it's interesting. I think it's from 2008 it started, and there's hardly any political correctness in it, but it's based in Canada, so there's some quirky little accents going on there, but it's cool. It's a nice show. Equality. We're all equal at the end of the day. We all have different skills, as the trees have different. Some bear fruit, some don't. Some bear nuts, some don't. Some you can eat the berries from, or the flowers from. And whilst they're all different and they all serve a purpose, so are human beings. The analogy there for me is
it's brilliant. I love how beautifully that has all tied in with what I've been talking about. Because we are all equal, but we're not. We're all different, and if we could all be treated equally for the specific excellences that we can bring, then things might work. But there's a lot of blocks in our way, because we have to figure out who we are to start with, which we have been led away from. And then we have to have the confidence to carry it out and then get through all of those blocks. And then we have to help other people rise and collaborate instead of compete. There's so much conditioning that you have to move through and out of. But it's been a really interesting exploration into quite a difficult subject for this one. But I'm enjoying it, and I'm learning so much from looking at all of this. And I like how even though it's the summer holidays, I've still managed to keep my show going, even though I've got my daughter with me. It's been kind of like a bit of juggle. But for therapists, it goes a bit quiet in the summer anyway, quite often. So I've just been working when I'm working, and trying to keep this going every week has been a bit challenging, but it's given me some structure as well, which I think I've needed too. So I think
coming up to 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
You've got a few last words that you want to stop your recording on. And then we've got Jackie and Douglas coming up at 7 o'clock.
Brilliant. Okay, well, I'll get a move on, and that's brilliant that you've got that show coming up, Jackie and Douglas. So good luck. So yeah, thanks everybody that's come on. I've enjoyed talking about that, and you know where to find me if you want to get in touch, and I'll see you all next week. So I'm just going to stop the recording now. So bye everybody. Thanks for listening.
Thanks so much, Jen.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks a lot, Jen.
Thanks, Andy. Okay.
So what are we doing? Are you doing another equality show next week, or is it going to be something different next week?
I haven't decided. Probably something different. Yeah, I'll see how it
Looking
goes.
forward to it.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, we're definitely looking forward to it.
Oh, thanks, Andy. All right. Good luck, Jackie and Douglas. Bye.
Bye.
Lily boo boos. Oh, sweet lady.